Have you ever sat down at your desk with the best intentions, maybe a pile of notes, your laptop open, a cup of coffee in hand, only to find yourself scrolling through your phone 10 minutes later, wondering where your focus went? Or maybe you've been halfway through a study session and suddenly realized you're more distracted by the clutter around you than the work in front of you. It's frustrating, right? You want to get things done, but the space around you feels like it's working against you instead of with you. The truth is, focus isn't just about willpower or discipline. It's about the environment you place yourself in. Think about it. If you're trying to concentrate in a room that's messy, dark, and full of distractions, of course your mind is going to wander. But when you design your surroundings with intention, even just a little bit, you give yourself what I like to call focus fuel. It's the invisible support system that helps you stay energized, clear-headed, and motivated to keep going. And the best part? You don't need a fancy home office, expensive gear, or a Pinterest-perfect setup. You can create your version of the perfect environment no matter your budget or living situation. That's exactly what we're diving into today. I'm going to walk you through how to design a study or workspace that helps you stay focused, productive, and actually enjoy the time you spend there. We'll talk about small, practical changes you can make right away, things you can do even if you're working from a tiny dorm room, a shared apartment, or just a corner of your bedroom. So let's start with the first and most obvious piece of the puzzle, clutter. I know, you've probably heard a million times that a messy desk equals a messy mind, but it's not just a cliche, it's science. When your environment is filled with random stuff, empty cups, old receipts, piles of paper, your brain has to process all of it, even if you're not consciously paying attention. That background noise makes it harder to focus on what actually matters. But here's the thing. I'm not telling you to suddenly become a minimalist or keep your desk spotless at all times. That's not realistic and honestly, not necessary. What really matters is creating a clear space just for the task you're working on. That might mean taking 2 minutes to put away the things that don't belong, or even pushing them aside into a box you can deal with later. The goal isn't perfection, it's reducing the number of distractions in your line of sight so your brain feels calmer and more focused. Let me paint a picture. Imagine 2 scenarios. In the first, you sit down to study and your desk is covered with random snacks, your laundry basket, a stack of unopened mail, and 3 empty mugs. In the second, your desk has only your laptop, a notebook, and maybe a glass of water. Same you, same task, but in the second scenario, it feels lighter, easier to breathe, easier to focus. That small difference in your environment creates a big difference in your energy. Now, once you've tackled the clutter, the next thing to think about is lighting. This one is often overlooked, but it's huge. If you've ever tried to study in a dimly lit room, you know how quickly your energy drains. Your eyes get tired, you start yawning, and before long, you're ready to call it quits. Light affects not just how well you can see, but how awake and alert your brain feels. Natural light is the gold standard. If you can, set up your workspace near a window. Even a little bit of sunlight boosts your mood and makes your brain feel more alive. But if natural light isn't an option, don't worry. A simple desk lamp with a bright, warm bulb can make a world of difference. And you don't have to spend much. There are affordable lamps out there that work just as well as the expensive ones. The point is to create an environment that feels inviting and energizing, not like a cave you're trying to escape from. And while we're on the subject of light, here's a quick tip. Avoid working directly under harsh fluorescent lighting if you can. It can make you feel drained and unfocused without you even realizing why. A softer, warmer light is usually better for keeping your energy steady. Now, let's talk about sound. Some people thrive in total silence, while others need a bit of background noise to focus. The key is figuring out what actually helps you, not just what you think should help. For example, if silence makes you feel restless, try instrumental music, nature sounds, or even a coffee shop background track. These can create a kind of focus bubble that makes the space feel alive without pulling your attention away. On the other hand, if you're easily distracted by any kind of noise, consider noise-canceling headphones or even just earplugs. And again, none of this has to cost a fortune. You can find tons of free playlists online designed for focus, or just use what you already have. The point isn't about having the perfect equipment, it's about shaping the atmosphere in a way that makes your brain want to stay present. So with clutter, lighting, and sound, you're already starting to see how little adjustments can fuel your focus. You don't have to completely renovate your space to feel a big shift in your energy. Sometimes it's as simple as clearing off a corner of your desk, opening the blinds, and putting on a playlist that makes you feel calm and steady. Those little choices stack up, and suddenly your environment is working with you instead of against you. And once you start to notice that shift, you'll find it's not just easier to sit down and get started, but also easier to stay in the zone for longer. You've removed some of the silent battles that were stealing your attention, and that frees up your energy for the work that actually matters. Now that we've laid the foundation with these first steps, let's take things a little deeper and explore how to add personal touches to your space that don't just support focus, but also inspire you to actually enjoy being there. You know what's wild? Sometimes it's not even about how much effort you put in, it's about the little things you didn't even realize were stealing your focus. Like, have you ever sat down to study and 10 minutes later you're randomly on your phone Googling something totally unrelated, like do penguins have knees? And then you're like, wait, how did I get here? That's the power of your environment. It can either keep you anchored or send you drifting. So now that we've tackled light and sound, let's move into something equally powerful but often overlooked, your workspace layout. Think about the way your desk is set up right now. Is it covered in random stuff, old cups, tangled headphones, sticky notes that don't even make sense anymore? If it is, don't worry, we've all been there. But here's the truth, the way your space looks and feels directly affects your brain. When your desk is cluttered, your brain feels cluttered. It's like trying to open 10 different apps on your phone at the same time. The processor slows down, things start freezing, and suddenly you're frustrated before you even get started. A clear desk isn't about looking aesthetic for Instagram, it's about giving your mind room to breathe. And don't think you need some fancy minimalist setup to make it happen. Even just starting with one small step, like clearing everything off except what you actually need for the next hour, can completely shift your mindset. If you're studying, that might be your textbook, a notebook, and a pen. If you're working, maybe it's just your laptop and a glass of water. You don't need the entire stationery shop spread across your desk to be productive. The goal is simplicity, because simplicity creates focus. Now let's talk about comfort, because let's be real, if your chair feels like sitting on a rock or your table is too high or too low, your body's going to start screaming at you long before your brain gets into the zone. You don't need a high-end ergonomic chair, although those are great if you can get one. You can make small adjustments with what you already have. A cushion behind your back, adjusting your screen so you're not craning your neck, even using a stack of books to raise your laptop closer to eye level, all of this matters more than you think. Because when your body's relaxed, your brain has one less reason to look for distractions. But here's the fun part. Comfort isn't just about preventing pain, it's about creating a space that actually feels good to be in. I want you to think about this. What's one small thing you could add to your desk or study area that makes you smile when you see it? Maybe it's a plant. Maybe it's a photo that reminds you why you're working so hard. Maybe it's a lamp with a warm glow that just makes the space feel inviting. That one small addition can shift your energy in ways you won't even notice until suddenly studying feels less like punishment and more like something you're okay sitting down for. And speaking of energy, let's not forget about movement. One of the biggest mistakes people make when setting up their environment is assuming they have to stay glued to one spot for hours. That's not how our bodies or brains are built. Movement sparks energy, and energy fuels focus. Even if your space is tiny, you can create little cues to remind yourself to move. Maybe every time you finish a page of notes, you stand up and stretch. Maybe you put your water bottle just far enough away that you actually have to get up to refill it. These micro breaks aren't distractions, they're refuels. They're like hitting the refresh button on your brain. Now let's address something that might feel a little silly but is surprisingly powerful: scent. Think about how certain smells instantly transport you. Maybe the smell of coffee reminds you of mornings full of energy. Maybe lavender makes you feel calm. Scent has a direct line to your memory and emotions, and you can use that to your advantage. You don't need expensive candles or fancy oils. Sometimes even the smell of fresh air from opening a window is enough. But if you do want to play around with it, pick a scent you only use while studying or working. Over time, your brain will start linking that smell with focus, almost like a shortcut into productivity mode. And then there's temperature. Have you noticed how it's basically impossible to focus when you're freezing or sweating? Your body's just too distracted trying to regulate itself. That's why adjusting your environment even a couple of degrees can make a huge difference. A light blanket when it's cold, a fan when it's hot, it doesn't have to be complicated. Your brain just wants you to feel okay so it can get on with the actual work. All of these little adjustments might sound small, but they add up. The layout of your space, the comfort of your body, the little touches that make you feel good, all of it becomes part of your focus fuel. And here's the thing, when you start seeing your environment as fuel instead of just a background, you realize how much control you actually have. You're not stuck in chaos. You can design your space to support the version of you who's motivated, clear-headed, and ready to crush it. And now that we've looked at the setup itself, what's around you, what's on your desk, and how it all feels, there's another layer that's just as important. It's not about what you see or feel physically, but what your brain is processing in the background. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Even if your desk looks perfect, your lighting is on point, and your chair feels like sitting on a cloud, if your brain is still overloaded with distractions, you're not going to get anywhere. And I don't just mean your phone buzzing every 5 minutes. I mean the invisible noise, the mental clutter that sneaks in without you noticing. Think about it. How many times have you sat down to work and suddenly remembered 5 random things you should be doing? Laundry. Paying that bill. Texting someone back. It's like your brain becomes a to-do list explosion the second you try to focus. And here's why. Your environment isn't just physical, it's psychological. The objects and cues around you are constantly sending signals to your brain. If your workspace is also where you eat, scroll TikTok, and maybe even nap, your brain is confused. It doesn't know if it's supposed to study or snack. So how do you fix that? You create mental boundaries. Even if you only have one small space, you can train your brain to associate that space with focus by being intentional. For example, if your desk is in your bedroom, fine. But decide, when you sit at that desk, it's work mode only. If you want to relax, you move somewhere else, even if it's just the edge of your bed. Over time, your brain learns, this spot equals focus. That spot equals chill. And that separation becomes one of the most powerful productivity tools you can build. Another mental boundary trick is rituals. These are tiny actions you repeat every time before you start working. It might be as simple as turning on the same lamp, or putting on a specific playlist, or even taking 3 deep breaths. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you do it consistently. Because rituals act like a switch for your brain. They say, okay, it's time to lock in. And once you've flipped that switch enough times, your focus kicks in faster with way less effort. Speaking of playlists, let's talk about the role of background input, the stuff your brain is processing while you work, even if you're not paying attention. For some people, complete silence feels unbearable. For others, too much noise is overwhelming. The key is to find what's called your optimal stimulation level. That sweet spot where your brain is engaged but not distracted. This could be instrumental music, nature sounds, or even a low-volume cafe ambience track. Some people focus best with white noise or brown noise. It's like a blanket for your brain, blocking out the little distractions without pulling your attention away. And the beauty of it? Most of these are free on YouTube or Spotify. You don't need expensive apps or gear. Just test different sounds until you find what clicks for you. Now, here's where things get interesting. Once you've built both the physical and mental parts of your environment, you can start using triggers, intentional cues that fire up your focus like hitting a button. Triggers can be external, like a scent you only use while studying, or internal, like a phrase you tell yourself every time you sit down. It sounds small, But it works because our brains love patterns. And the more you repeat those patterns, the faster your brain learns. This means it's time to focus. One of the simplest triggers I've used myself is a timer. Not even fancy, just the one on my phone. I'll set it for 25 minutes, and the second I hit start, it's like I've given myself permission to tune out everything else because I only have to commit for that block. And honestly, half the time by the time the timer goes off, I'm so deep into the task I don't even want to stop. That's the power of using your environment not just to reduce distractions, but to actively pull you in. And here's the bigger picture. When you combine all of this, light, sound, layout, comfort, rituals, triggers, you're not just building a workspace. You're building a focus system. A system that supports you no matter what mood you're in, no matter how tired you feel, no matter how much you've been procrastinating. Because instead of relying on motivation, which we all know is unpredictable, you're relying on structure. And structure wins every single time. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but where do I start? It feels like a lot. And that's where most people give up. They try to overhaul everything at once. But here's the secret, you don't need to change everything. You just need to change one thing at a time. Pick the easiest one. Maybe it's clearing your desk. Maybe it's adding a lamp. Maybe it's creating a two-step ritual before you work. Start small, let your brain feel the difference, and then build from there. That's how this becomes sustainable. Because at the end of the day, your environment isn't just about productivity. It's about quality of life. When your space supports you, stress goes down. Confidence goes up. You start proving to yourself, over and over, that you can actually follow through. And that ripple effect doesn't just make you more focused, it makes you feel better about yourself, period. So here's my challenge for you, tonight or tomorrow, pick just one change. Clear one corner of your desk. Try one new ritual. Add one small comfort item. And notice how even that single shift changes the way you show up. Because once you feel it, you'll realize it's not about forcing yourself to focus. It's about creating the conditions where focus becomes natural. And if you want to go deeper, in the next video I'll show you how to pair this environment setup with simple mindset shifts that make procrastination almost impossible. So hit that subscribe button, because you won't want to miss it.